I've obviously prepared a short presentation. We do want this to be interactive, so pop your questions into the chat. Hopefully you can see the slide okay. This is what we're going to cover. What's important about it? Why do we think leadership embodiment's important? We'll introduce our ELSP, which we're very proud of and excited about, and talk a little bit about how we perform an ELSP assessment. And then we'll talk about what a valuable tool or methodology ELSP is in collective leadership, because it is core to how we generate systemic intelligence. We'll talk a little bit about how it impacts individuals and teams when they have an embodied leadership strengths assessment. And then we'll finish up with talking about what's the model that we're offering for people to learn this methodology and come on board with Leadership Coefficient as a practitioner. So that's what we're going to do right now. So how is this important? We were very proud in 2013. We've had this methodology for a while now. It's pretty tested. We've got over 1,000 profiles in our database. And we got the attention of Nick Petrie. Some of you may have read his work from the Center for Creative Leadership quite early on, and he interviewed us about this, and he cites us in this white paper that he wrote. He was very curious about our ELSP, and he made this comment that the implication, if we really want to help adults develop if you like, in the next wave of leadership development, we kind of have to stop keeping on filling up people's heads and move into working with the whole body. So that was really great, great comment. We totally agree. That's why we developed this work. So that was very interesting, and so we see it as very important. And the reason that we are so focused is that we're aware, and many of you would be through the findings of neuroscience and so on, that we actually have 3 intelligence centers in our body. We're very, very familiar with this one up in the head. We've been trained to death in that. But actually we have neurology in the chest area. The cardiologists refer to it as the little brain in the heart, which actually has quite a sophisticated capability and actually produces hormones like serotonin and dopamine and others that we used to think the brain was managing and doing, but actually that's coming out of the neurology, the little brain in the heart. And in the gut, well, we actually have a huge number of neurons, and we know this for ourselves. We get butterflies in the stomach when we're a little bit nervous, or we have this concept of gut feeling that we talk about is not really just a metaphor, I would suggest. And in fact, and these different areas of our body that have this intelligence, if I can call it that, or little brains, are all connected. I won't go into too much of the physiology, but they're all connected by a nerve called the vagus nerve that links them up. And actually a lot of messages are going to the brain from these other parts of the body, letting it know what's going on, putting it very simplistically. So this is, the results. This is more recent research. The neuroscience field has started to produce a lot of information that has uncovered this research. And that's really the intelligence that we are working with when we work with our embodied leadership strengths profile methodology. So I'll say more about it in a moment, but this is how important it is that we, as leaders, we are very good at working with our head, but we're not necessarily so well able to access this functionality that we have in the chest and the torso area, which if we only knew how to access it, we could be even more insightful or spot on, with our thinking and our decisions. So it's very important for our leadership. And so this is the last comment about the importance of it. Again, Nick Petrie has written papers on vertical development. He cited us in that paper. And he talks a little bit about, you know, the head brain is sort of full. You can't keep on cramming more information into the head, because people maybe don't have the capacity to really be able to do anything with that, or, you know, they're pretty much full. He says we actually need to grow a bigger capacity for encompassing complexity, you know, and ambiguity and all those other things that go with that. So it's no longer about let's put more information in, but it's more about how can we develop ourselves to be in a holistic way, to be able to take on complexity, you know, or more ideas, more thoughts, and so on, and you know, really be able to operate at a higher level. And we say, yes, the way we can do that is through leadership embodiment, through the ability to access these other power centers that we have, other than the brain in our head. The brain in our head, of course, is very important too. So, so this is all about vertical development in a holistic way, growing our full embodied intelligence. And in our view, ELSP is a unique way in which coaches and consultants can help people to get to that. So let me introduce ELSP for a moment and talk about what it is, because everybody always asks. It's a body-based assessment method. Now, most of us have done assessments in the past by filling out a psychological questionnaire, and we're very familiar with answering 60 questions and getting a report that tells us these are your natural characteristics and talents and strengths. These are the things you'd find challenging. You know, these are your growth opportunities, and so on. Well, we're able to do that through this body-based assessment, amazing though that may sound. And we do it, the methodology comes from the world of physical therapies. Some of you may have heard of these therapies, like Alexander or Aikido. It's very much grounded in Aikido. In our own team, we're trained in a way in Aikido, which is really about the mind-body connection. And as well, it's about a focus of attention and being able to hold a posture. So we actually ask people in an assessment to focus their attention on a particular area of the body, what we call a power center, and then to focus, and then to actually hold a posture around that, and then we can test them in a martial arts style. I'll show you a couple of pictures in a moment to clarify that. So what happens is that we learn from this what our strengths are, and we learn about each other in a team as well. So this methodology is really powerful for an individual. It's a great basis for coaching. You can start to coach the whole body. And when we profile whole teams, we can actually start to generate systemic intelligence, because in collective leadership, we're actually all about systems awareness, systems thinking, that is human systems thinking, understanding the dynamics of the human system or team that we're a part of, and how to then, when we have that understanding, how to then make our own valuable contribution more powerfully and leverage the talents and contributions of others and manage our dynamic as a team. So with that awareness, we can be far more effective as a team together. So the bottom line of all our work is systemic intelligence, systems awareness, leading with systems awareness in order to lead collaboratively and collectively together as a team. So it's powerful for an individual in its own right in a one-to-one coaching scenario. We do that a lot. It's extremely powerful for a team. Some of you may have seen the white paper on our website, which has these photos in it. This is how we do an assessment. And you can see the small picture top right. If you notice the eyes, it's about focus of attention and facial expression, as I mentioned just now, as well as the posture. And postures vary. This, in the big picture here, this pair are demonstrating one of 9 different postures. we have a different posture for each dimension, and we're working with 9 body dimensions. So we ask you to adopt the posture, focus your attention in a particular way. In the large picture, you can see this woman is actually looking past the coach who's assessing her, looking past him. And that's a particular facial expression that we ask for in that particular posture. It's important, of course, when we're testing, that everybody, both the tester and the client, can stay very grounded and centered. This is about being very present and very aware. So in this process, we also train some very powerful leadership competencies about being present and being mindful, being grounded, being centered, and being observant of others. All of these competencies get developed with teams when they're working with this methodology. This is a co-creation because the client experiences for him or herself what this test feels like. And they will actually tell us, oh, wow, I felt so strong in that posture, like, you know, even a Mack truck couldn't have knocked me over. Or, oh, I was really wobbly there, I just didn't feel strong at all. And so people notice for themselves where they feel most strong or where they feel less strong. Actually, we all have all 9 dimensions, and we have distinct preferences, and we typically find 4 strong preferences which form a person's profile of 4. Because it's such an experience, because it is experiential learning par excellence, we find people very quickly learn their profile. They know it. It's a bit like, you know, a toddler taking its first steps, never forgets how to walk, or, you know, riding a bicycle, suddenly getting it that you can ride a bicycle. It's kind of like in your neurology, and you feel for yourself what your talents and strengths are. And with teams, people very quickly learn and start to recognize these talents and strengths in their teammates as well, because of this essential experiential body-based essence of the methodology. So we find it's much faster adopted and much sort of stickier learning than, say, a paper-based assessment that produces a 40-page report that everybody has to read, because you're working with the immediate experience of the body. Here's some more pictures. You can see the postures are quite different for the different dimensions, and the facial expression as well. In the center picture, we've asked this woman to make eye contact and smile in that particular posture, which she's doing beautifully. So that's how it works. It's actually a wonderful experience to have an assessment. You can see it's not intrusive or invasive or you know, in any way invading anybody's safety. We obviously train all our consultants to work very carefully with creating a very safe and supportive context in which to do the test. It's usually a very fun and empowering experience for people. So that's how we do the assessment. I'm going to pause there for a second in case our moderator, Anna, wants to alert me to any comments or questions.
Yes, thanks, Jane. And I wondering if there are any questions so far on the assessment, and how did Jane get it? Any questions so far? We like this to be interactive. What's on your mind? Tell us.
Would you mind if I jump in again? I always apologize for being
No apologies, Marcel. Jump in.
What's really interesting to me is I come from a martial arts background as well. So I was actually also the Japanese martial arts, including Aikido, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, and karate. And so I started doing karate when I was 5 years old. So I'm a lifelong martial artist. So I actually just naturally, as a natural propensity, use a lot of martial arts teachings in my somatic awareness as well. So it's an interesting coincidence. What was it that drew you to Aikido and the use of that as kind of the catalyst to teach the body and mind connection?
Well, for me, actually, it was the other way around. I had an experience of this methodology in the USA back in 2007 with the people that originally developed it, and it was such a powerful experience for me that I then went on and wanted to learn about Aikido and research this and take that initial experience into developing the body of work that we've created now. So it was, I think for me, it was being so aware of how, the way I think, the way I'm thinking in any situation affects my body strength or how strong I'm feeling. And by the way, of course, that's true in the reverse as well.
Exactly.
So if I empower myself at my body, for example, if I want to really, if I'm, well, before this meeting, I want to be strong in this meeting. So I can actually go here, which is for me a very strong power center. It's sort of the thinker and trainer in me. And I can actually very consciously focus my attention there and if you like, dial up the strength that I have here, which will help me in a meeting like this to explain or give clarity or give overview, because that's a dimension that supports that. So we can actually, it works both ways. Our thoughts will affect how strong our body is. We can make our body strong, and that will impact having a more powerful expression for us in whatever circumstances we might be in.
Okay. I as I was looking, of course, because I make reference to qi, right? Which in Chinese, of course, they use qi.
Yeah.
Qi and qi are actually the first two letters of my daughter's name are qi, is qi, which actually comes from the generation of
Japanese, yeah.
The center for qi is the same in Japanese martial arts as it is for qi. And so what's interesting is in some of the programs that I run, I do a very similar exercise, just coincidentally, because I've never heard of this program, but I actually use the Tai Chi method, which is push hands. So there's a push hands exercise in Tai Chi where they do very similar type movements. It's slightly more dynamic, but actually this is also a great way of representing. And one of the translations that I use is that when we, ultimately when we're trying to inspire change, right? We want to evoke some form of emotional response, right? Because emotions drive behavior. And one of the challenges with the traditional way of coaching is that you have to go through the eyes and the cerebral cortex before you can actually get to the limbic system, which is, of course, the emotional centers in the brain. Yes. And there can be, and so you're dealing with a lot of resistance. You're dealing with, preconceived notions, biases, et cetera, as where when you go through the body is actually direct through the brainstem, is directly connected with the emotional centers. So when you go through the body, you actually go through emotions first before there is then that thinking element. So it's kind of a backdoor into the kind of emotional processes, right? So that's in executive coaching, having both directions, I guess, just makes it potentially much more powerful to be able to incite change, right? So it's definitely I totally get where you're coming from, but I just thought it was really interesting that this is something I've been practicing for a long time, but it looks like we've both been on very similar paths.
It does. It really does.
It is very different. Yeah, it is very different way. So yeah, thanks for that answer.
And thank you, Marcel. That's really nice to. I mean, it's really great to have those comments, because it's a wonderful validation of the work we're doing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Marcel, this is exactly that's why when we had this, I thought of you and that you need to come onto this call, because I believe that there is a lot of the things are coming together. And I'm amazed, Jane, that she will go on into the next chart to show that what leadership coefficient has done is to make it very visible and and easy for the corporate world to use it. So I think that is as Jane will explain in the next few charts, on how do you not only use it personally for your own assessment in your coaching, and also to do it from a team perspective, knowing yourself and then knowing others, and then letting the system reveal itself through the constellations.
Yeah, and also what I'm keen to know is the articulation, right? So, you know, something when I was writing my book, when I was publishing my book, I learned the art of simplicity, and that it's all about simple language. And I have as a person, I have a tendency to overcomplicate everything, and so so sometimes simplicity is more brilliant than complexity, actually most of the times. And so I'd love to know how, because when I explain it to people, it often sounds way too complicated. So having the art of simplicity in this case is you know, often exactly what people need. So so yeah, I'm definitely keen to hear more. So thank you.
Hey, and I have a quick question. Since Marcel has brought up about Tai Chi and all, I have some experience in somatic movements in dance and how that allows for freer expression and also connecting the heart and the mind and the body. Maybe if you could also share a little bit if there's any reference to such somatic movements and dance or other body experiences as part of the ELSP, if there's any. Thanks.
Okay, well, dance is not something that we have particularly gone into, but there is absolutely no doubt that movement, you know, body movement would be a very significant part of, if you like, activating different power centers with the consciousness of it. I was wondering whether Maggie's got any thoughts on that, because she's done a lot of the research on the background of this as well. Maggie, do you have any thoughts on dance?
No, it's not something that I've particularly looked into. So, but movement, you know, is important, and also it's important sometimes to use it to help focus in particular areas if you're trying to draw on a strength. But it's a very interesting area that I haven't explored or come across in looking at this. My focus more recently has been on the whole field of embodied cognition and how that's kind of exploding in the world of psychology.
Yeah, Maggie is is a ELSP practitioner, and also she's a consultant with Leadership Coefficient in Australia.
Thanks, Anna.
Thanks. Yes, I realised I hadn't.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Anne. So just for Anne, so there has I apologize for, but it seems to be from a neuroscience background. It seems that all movements that involve rotation of the body and spatial awareness have these effects on the brain in various different areas of the brain, right?
Yeah.
So dance definitely is just as powerful as if somebody were to use, you know, martial arts or anything like that. And that's why, you know, there are so many studies that are showing really what the types of movements are. But it seems to be the more spatial and the more complex the movement patterns are, the more areas of the brain, and especially with regards to emotional connection with that does seem to be you know, kind of that next area. So we're actually seeing that in the fitness industry as well. We're seeing that the next level in the fitness industry is with regards to what type of exercises trigger various different parts of the brain, and you know, how can we trigger various different parts of the brain using different movements. And a lot of this stuff is learned from, you know, the power of dance, and you know, and actually, you know, martial arts is often called a dance, right? You know, and if we look at, like, for example, in Japanese martial arts, kata, right? Kata is the Japanese word for form, and so kata is how we carry ourselves. But it's also a choreography, and so a lot of this is just like dance, but then mimicking, you know, fighting and things like that. So yeah, there is a ton of work that's actually validating the power of dance. Yeah.
There is so much more we can do with this. I'm actually working at the moment with an Aboriginal dance academy near where I live, who are fascinated by our ELSP and dance. So, I mean, you know, we're about 10 years into this journey, and we know there's so much more to discover.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, why don't
I just wanted to add very quickly, we've also we've also incorporated yoga into some of our programs, certain poses. So yes, we do. We are very aware of the focus of in positions and so forth. And yes, there's lots more to do.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think we need to get it along. Jane, you still have a few more exciting things to share.
I do. Well, it was lovely to have the interaction with people too. Well, I'd like to show you these models. We have many models actually in ELSP. It's a multi-layered system, and we start people off with a couple of very simple ones, which deepens their own personal insight and self-awareness. And I'm not showing that at the moment. And then we move to some team models. This is one of the team models. And this is how we actually work collective leadership or systems leadership with a team. Because when we have people's profiles, we can plot the team on a constellation. We will work with the talking about movement and dance. We will work with them in the room, on the floor, moving around these constellations, and to have like an embodied felt experience of what is the dynamic of this team. So anybody that's done work with human systems and generating human systems intelligence, you know, who's working with constellations of teams and looking at dynamics of teams from that perspective, would understand this and would be able to use a model like this to really help a team to actually understand its own dynamic. That can be at a very simple level, like, oh my goodness, I see we don't have anybody at the Manifestor 8. So we're a team with lots of vision and ideas, but nobody's turning it into action and results. That could be one insight. It might also be a dynamic that says, oh, we're overweight here or underweight there, or I notice that we always tend to do this as a team, and that's a recurring dynamic that we don't manage well. And now we see it, because when I did my systems coaching training, I was taught the role of the systems coach is to reveal the system to itself. You don't have to do anything else, because once the system sees its own dynamic, it will start to adjust. I mean, obviously you're coaching that interventions to make that, help that adjustment happen. So once the system can see itself, you know, awareness and responsibility are generated. And from there, as we all know as coaches, that's the beginning of bringing about change. So this is a really powerful model that wakes teams up to themselves, and also really validates teams, because they can go, oh, look, we see we have these people that offer these wonderful contributions in these different areas. And maybe we didn't notice some of them so much. So it's also about, you know, there are always the quiet achievers in teams, and there are also the loud, noisy ones. And it's like, let's notice and actually appreciate and validate every single person in this team for the things that they bring. Because another model that we show people is this one. We call it coherence model. I've talked about, you know, the brain and the head and the heart and the gut. But we also have these verticals where we know that different dimensions have different energies about them. Some dimensions have like an anticipating energy. They're outwardly focused. They're picking up from the impulse of the outer world. Some dimensions have a driving quality to them. They're all about action and results. And some dimensions have more of a holding quality to them, ensuring clarity and calm. And all of these different energies are very important in a team or in any organization, any community of people that are working together to accomplish tasks, whether it's a, you know, a church community or something in our private lives, or whether it's a business community. We need all of these energies. So what teams can learn from these models is, oh, wow, you know, these people that are rather quiet with this holding energy, perhaps not as out there as others, bring something very important to us. They bring perspective and clarity, or they keep us calm in a crisis. Or, you know, the people that are very hard drivers that sometimes we feel a bit overburdened by are actually, you know, the reason why we're getting great results as a team. So this really helps the team to understand its strengths and who we all are, what we all bring, what we all contribute, and how we can balance ourselves together in the optimal way for collective performance. That's really what it's all about at the end of the day. So that's just a couple of examples of the team models. There are, as I say, others. There's a very powerful team model about leading transformation and change. It's a more advanced model that explores the dynamics of these different dimensions when they work together in a team to lead transformation. It's very powerful for organizations as well. So the ELSP process goes from somebody having an individual assessment with a coach, you know, which deepens their own self-awareness and gives them things to work on for their growth, through to a group of people in a team having an assessment, and then maybe, typically working in a leadership team workshop to explore dynamics like this model portrays. So, you know, you can start with a one-on-one coaching client, and you might find yourself very quickly being asked to work with an executive leadership team through this methodology. So it's really powerful for bringing about change, you know, across organizations. Which leads me to a few minutes on how we've structured up this opportunity to work with us. Because you've probably gathered that, you know, it obviously takes a little bit of time to become a practitioner. People who've worked with body and somatic therapies are able to learn it quicker than others. But the opportunity that we see is that being able to work with clients, and Marcel has told us himself, you know, how he's been doing it for years, how powerful that is a differentiator. And we see this is the beginning of something big that's coming. We're just at the beginning of a wave, we believe. We've been doing this for 10 years, so it's been a slow wave in a way, but it's coming, and it's getting fast now, which is why we've decided to move this out into the wider world, not just our community. There's about 20 of us in Leadership Coefficient globally, and we're now actually more like 30. Yeah. And we're now saying, hey, we need to take this out into the world more strongly, because it's such a powerful force for change and growth, and therefore fulfillment and satisfaction for people in organizations. And we really want it out there so that people can get the benefits of it. So becoming part of that community is, by the way, a very fulfilling experience. And by becoming an ELSP practitioner with us, it's a wonderful community that's working to really change the game in organizations. And our clients are a testimony to that. They absolutely love this work when they come across it. Typically, we start with an executive team. Before we know where we are, they've asked us to come back and assess the teams underneath, because they want to know the profiles of the people that are working for them, which are the teams they lead. And then that actually, you know, fans out more broadly into the organization as well. And the HR leaders start to work with us on talent deployment decisions, how to form up project teams, all sorts of exciting stuff. So it's really powerful. So this is, we can get this presentation to you afterwards, so that you can ponder it, you know, or look at it in more detail, but just a very high level overview of how the business model works. An assessment has a fee. It's a global price that we have around the world. And when you do an assessment, you pay an assessment fee to Leadership Coefficient, you as a coach. Doing an assessment one-on-one is about a 2-hour session, so you'll charge your client for a 2-hour coaching session at whatever rates you normally choose. That's the financial model. We ask you to license for the software with us as a practitioner. That's a requirement because we record every assessment in the software. We've built an extraordinary database. There's more than 1,000 profiles in our software, and we're using that also to begin to look at, you know, what typical profiles are we seeing for different roles in organizations, and all sorts of other research. There's tremendous research opportunity there. And out of the software come wonderful reports and handouts for workshops when you're working with a team, or opportunities to show reports with HR executives that facilitate or foster that discussion that I was talking about around talent deployment, team performance, team dynamics, and so on, which you as a consultant may be helping them with, or you may be training team leaders in the organization on how to lead their own teams with systemic understanding and make systemic interventions. I've just talked about the workshops, so I won't go into it further, other than to say that if you working with a whole team, this first bullet, typically your one-on-one client is going to want to start working, ask you to work with the whole team. There's a body of material, PowerPoints and workshop timelines that you have access to at no charge. We allow you to use our workshop IP without an IP payment once you are a certified ELSP practitioner. So you know, we only ask that you pay us the assessment fee for every assessment that you do. That's the model. And then there's an online practitioner platform where you can access materials, and there's a wonderful community. So you can say to the community, oh, I've got a team that's presenting with this, that, and the other, and I've got a team workshop with them, and I want to use Jane's, you know, slides and timeline for X, Y, Z, but I'd love to just add some other thoughts, and people will participate with you and contribute their ideas, because at Leadership Coefficient, we also try to walk the talk, the difficult talk of collective leadership and supporting each other. I'd like to make sure we have time to talk about how you become accredited, which is an important part of this meeting. And there are two pathways. I've mentioned that at Leadership Coefficient, we are all about collective leadership, and we have a sizable body of work, an executive retreat program, all sorts of other half and one day workshops that teach collective leadership to executive teams, and indeed other teams, but we always start at the top. So the pathway 2 on this slide I'll talk about first, because by coming to our retreat program, we run an open program every year. We're mostly working in-house with intact leadership teams, but we do offer an open enrollment program once a year for coaches and consultants, and maybe people from clients that need to catch up, new executives into the team or whatever, to experience our full collective retreat program and learn ELSP in depth in that way. And that then positions you to work with us as a facilitator of our full range of collective leadership offerings, including, of course, ELSP. The other pathway is to accredit in ELSP only, not the rest of the collective leadership material. And that can be achieved by attending these workshops, 3 two-day workshops, an introductory session where we give you your assessment and talk about you know, how the whole model works, and then 3 two-day workshops, which then has you ready to become accredited. You can see that from the comment at the bottom of this slide, that for every individual it's slightly different. Some people are ready very quickly, you know, with being able to perform an assessment, and being able to then perform a coaching debrief with a client that really deepens them on their assessment. Some people take a bit longer than others. So we say after the training, you'll work closely with one of us as your accreditation leader. And together, then we have like a self-assessment process, an assessment form. It's a co-creation. We'll work together with you, and at a certain point, we'll both agree, yes, this is the moment, you're ready. You know, you're ready to be accredited and to work independently, I mean, not independently, work with us as an ELSP practitioner. So that's how the training pathway works. So it's not an overnight training. And that's because it's very deep. I mentioned at the beginning, it's a multi-layered system. And it takes a little while to really get inside the depth of insight around each of these 9 dimensions. Not to mention understanding a person's holistic profile. So we give you 4 dimensions as your 4 most preferred. And what does it mean when you put those 4 together? Because that's another lens. And then looking at teams and constellations. So it's an in-depth training. It's a very rewarding and exciting training. People absolutely love it. They find it very compelling. So, you know, that's the way we do it. And then basically once you're accredited, we'll go into an agreement with you that licenses you to use our intellectual property and perform assessments. So that's the sort of nitty-gritty information around how to come and work with us with ELSP. After this meeting, please take a look at these pathways and let us know if you'd like to join to go on this journey with us of becoming an ELSP practitioner. We're a small enough organizations that we like to keep it personal. We've got partners and region leaders around the world, so if you would like to have a conversation with somebody to learn more or to consider this, just let us know by this email, and we'll set up a time for you to talk with someone like Anna or myself or Maggie or Maytak. So with that, we've got about 5 minutes left. Anna, I'd like to pass it back to you. I'm not sure what might have turned up in the chat room or whether people have questions or comments.
Thank you, Jane. There was one question from Rich Strilovich, and he was asking whether the Hellinger, the work that you're doing with constellation has any relation to the Hellinger constellation work, Hellinger.
Yes, Bert Hellinger. It's from the same, it's the same body of work. Hellinger was a pioneer, for those that perhaps haven't heard of this. I think in the 60s or 70s, either German or Dutch, I can't remember, and was working initially with family therapy. That's how it began, looking at systemic challenges or issues in families. And that was pioneering work. And that work has now, become part of organizational development thinking as well, looking at systemic issues. So yes, I didn't do my training with the Hellinger Institute. I did it with the Center for Right Relationship, which offers the ELSP training, which Rich most likely would have heard of because it's in the USA. That's Organization and Relationship Systems Coaching. But the ELSP program draws a lot on the Hellinger work and indeed many bodies of work in this area. Yeah. Maggie, do you have a further comment on that or a thought on that? Oh, can't hear you.
Maggie, yes.
Yeah, no, I think you put it very well. I mean, there are practitioners that we've worked with in Australia who have trained in that. Sarah Connelly comes to mind.
Yes.
So yeah, we're aware of the body of work, as you said, and it's the underlying sort of it's the origination of a lot of what we do.
Mm. There are no further questions. I would like to, while you were talking on the line, Lynn from Singapore joined the call. Welcome, Lynn. And Janet had to leave earlier, but she said she will be listening into the audio recording. So there were no other questions on the group chat. Anybody would like to add anything before we close?
We're doing well on time, which is great. Anybody, we've got a couple more minutes if anybody wants to put a question into the chat or ask something or make a comment.
Not a question from my end, Jane, but just a comment to say that this was very informative and I look forward to coming on board, and so it should be very exciting.
Oh, thank you, Pearl. I recognize your voice. Thank you so much. I know you're joining us in the open program and we're really looking forward to having you there. So that's so exciting. Thank you.
That's fabulous, Pearl. Can't wait.
Yeah, same here too, Pearl.
Yes, I'm looking forward to catching up with you all again, very much so.
Thank you.
Right. I also just want to say thank you. It was really great, and thanks, Anna, also for inviting me. It was definitely very informative. I look forward to chatting more with you over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, great.
Right, great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Very
guys.
much.
I gotta run as well. I have another call. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you